everybody, it's Paige Evans. I have a new process video to share with you today. It's been a while since I shared a layout process video, so I decided to make one just for fun. I started by designing a floral frame cut file, and I die cut it from textured white cardstock, and I'm using just this one pattern paper from my Pick Me Up collection with Pink Paisley. And I am going to back this entire cut file. There are a few different methods for backing cut files. This first method, I am going to trace on the front a little section of a flower using a pencil, going to cut around it slightly larger, erase the pencil marks, and then I use liquid adhesive to apply the paper in place. And I'm going to repeat that for all of the sections of the flower. There are 4 sections on this flower, and as you can see, there are a lot of pieces on this floral frame. So backing a cut file takes quite a while, but I always love the results. Flipping it over when I'm finished paper piecing is just that wow moment and makes it all worth it. So if you're not a fan of backing cut files, that's cool, to each their own, but if you love backing cut files, then this is a fun one for you. And I will include a link to the cut file so you can grab it for free on Dropbox as a thank you for your support and following me here on YouTube. So yeah, then I got smart and decided to cut all the colors, the different sections individually, cut them out individually, and then layered them into piles of like color. And this allows me to do a different method of backing cut files, which is, instead of having to erase pencil marks, you won't need to. So on this flower, I cut out the center from yellow pattern paper, and then I'm flipping the pattern paper over and tracing the outside of this flower. And then when I trim it out, I will cut it slightly inside the pencil marks. And since I traced on the back side of the pattern paper, you won't see the pencil marks, so it doesn't matter. Don't need to erase them. Then I'll put it in place on the flower. One final method is to just eyeball it. So these are kind of oval shapes. So I put liquid adhesive around them, and then I'm just going to eyeball cutting out an oval from the pattern paper. No tracing involved, no need to erase pencil marks or even use a pencil at all. I'm just going to guess the size of the oval and hope it fits, and it usually does. Okay, maybe not usually, half of the time. So sometimes it might be easier to just use a pencil and cut it out. So I flipped it over, and now I'm choosing a background cardstock. I've pulled a few different colors, and I'm liking this blue and mint, but I actually decided to go with a lighter blue. It's a light blue textured cardstock from American Crafts, and I'm going to just carefully trace the inside corners, and I'm going to use an entire package of rubons. There are 2 pieces, and I'm going to apply these rubons to the center of the frame. It's not an exact square, so I'm just kind of trying to make them into a square shape as close as possible. And then I'm using the popsicle stick that comes in the rub-on packaging and pressing the rub-ons in place. And if you're peeling it off and there's a part of a rub-on that didn't apply, just use the popsicle stick as you carefully peel it off to make sure everything gets stuck down in place as it should. And I find that the faster you use your rub-on packaging, the better they will apply. Sometimes rub-ons, after sitting for a couple years, they lose their rub-oniness, for lack of a better term. And that adds a whole bunch of color inside of this flower frame. I've picked a couple of photos of my daughter Jane. I'm going to just use one because I don't want to cover up too much of the colorful rub-ons in the center. And I'm going to put the photo on the bottom left side, add liquid glue just to the inside frame only. I'm erasing the pencil marks just in case they show through, and pressing the frame in place. And I know I want to use my sewing machine to stitch around, but before I do that, I want to trim the photo to the right size. Otherwise, if I stitch around it with the photo in place, I wouldn't be able to trim off those excess edges, and I don't really want those edges peeking out from behind the frame. So I traced, trimming off those edges so they're flush with the inside edges of the flower frame. Added a little bit of adhesive to the back and smushing it down. So now I am going to machine stitch with my brother's sewing machine using a straight stitch just around the inside of the frame and trimming off the thread ends. A lot of the times I leave the thread ends long, but in this case I wanted a cleaner look, so I trimmed off the thread ends. Bending up the flowers for some more dimension. I could add dimensional adhesive underneath them, but it's not really necessary. They bend up on their own. I'm using a pencil to write my journaling in this spot, and I'm glad I didn't go over it with a pen because it's actually going to get covered up. This rainbow striped paper is from the Foam Thickers packaging material. It's a separator between the two kinds of thickers, and I love using it as a pattern paper basically. So I'm punching it into a scalloped border, trimming it into a thin strip, and I'm going to add it to each side of inside of the frame. So I have to do this a few different times to get enough scalloped pieces to go around the inside. I also machine stitched those pieces in place, and then I'm bending up the scallops for dimension. So they're not flat, but get some cool shadows by bending up the scallops. And then going to rewrite some journaling. I erased it, and then I'm writing a shorter version inside basically the same spot using a pencil. I decided I liked it there, so I went over it with a black precision pen. The title is going to be Love to Read, so I used the white mini foam thickers to write to read, and then I'll use a yellow heart from the stickers and place it at the top, so it's Love to Read. I'm coming in with some puffy stickers in the empty spaces and also on some of the matching icons to create more texture and interest, because everything inside the square is pretty flat, so by adding these puffy stickers creates more interest, more texture, more fun, pops of color, all those good things. But I actually decided that there were too many puffy stickers, and so I ended up removing about half of them. So here I'm just pointing out the ones that stuck. And that is the finished layout. It was fun to create. I hope you are inspired to create a layout like it with the cut file, so I will leave a link, and thank you so much for watching.